The lights went out with a sound like thunder. Captain Juan felt the deck plates shake under his feet as every screen on the bridge turned black. The steady hum of the ship's engines died away, leaving only the whisper of emergency air circulation and the rapid breathing of his crew. "What happened?" Juan asked, his voice steady despite the fear growing in his chest. The cargo freighter Stellar Dawn had been running smoothly just seconds before. Now it drifted silent and dead in the empty space between star systems. Myra. His second-in-command was already moving to the emergency control panel. Her hands flew over the manual switches, but nothing responded. "Main power is gone," she said. "Backup systems are failing one by one." The bridge emergency lights flickered on, casting red shadows across the faces of the crew. Juan could see the worry in their eyes. In space, a dead ship meant death for everyone aboard. There was no air to breathe outside the hull, no ground to stand on, nowhere to run. "Tay, get down to engineering," Juan ordered. "Find out what went wrong." The young engineer nodded and ran toward the door. But when he pressed the control panel, nothing happened. The automatic doors were dead too. Tay had to grab the manual release and pull the heavy door open by hand. Juan activated the ship's communication system to speak to all 12 crew members. "This is the captain. We have lost main power. Stay calm and report to your emergency stations. Engineering team to the engine room. Medical team, prepare for possible injuries." Throughout the ship, crew members began moving through the darkened corridors. The Stellar Dawn carried beings from 5 different worlds. There were humans like Juan and Myra, but also others who had joined the crew for various reasons. In the navigation section, Yoon tried to restart the computer systems. She was the ship's best pilot, able to guide them through asteroid fields and space storms. But now her screens showed nothing but black emptiness. The ship's location systems were dead. Even if they could fix the engines, they would not know which way to go. Down in the medical bay, Dr. Bin checked her equipment. The emergency medical kit still worked, but the main diagnostic machines were powerless. If anyone got hurt during the crisis, she would have to rely on basic tools and her own skills. The alien crew members were handling the emergency in their own ways. Grix, a tall reptilian warrior from the Vorthak homeworld, stood guard near the weapon storage room. His people believed in facing death with honor, but he was not ready to give up yet. His scaled hands checked his personal weapon, making sure it was ready if needed. In the cargo section, 3 insectoid Clixon traders huddled together, their antennae twitching with nervous energy. Vix, their leader, tried to contact their home world using a personal communication device. But the ship's main transmitter was dead, and the small device could not reach across the vast distance of space. The strangest crew member was Thices, a being made of living crystal from the Nexari worlds. Thices did not need air or food like the others, but the ship's failure still affected the crystal being. Thices glowed with inner light. But that light was growing dimmer as worry spread through the alien's crystalline structure. 20 minutes after the power failure, the crew gathered in the main corridor near the bridge. The emergency lighting made everyone look pale and frightened. Juan tried to project confidence, but he could see that hope was fading fast. "Report," he said simply. Tay spoke first, his voice shaking slightly. "The main reactor core shut down completely. Something caused a massive overload in the quantum containment system. I have never seen damage this bad. The safety systems activated and locked everything down to prevent an explosion." "Can you restart it?" Myra asked. Tay shook his head. "The computer will not allow it. Too many systems show critical damage warnings. Even if I could override the safety locks, I do not know how to fix the containment matrix. That requires specialized knowledge and equipment we do not have." Yoon stepped forward. "Navigation is completely dead. We do not know our exact position, and we cannot plot a course anywhere. Even if we had engines, we would be flying blind." "Doctor?" Bin added more bad news. "Life support is running on emergency power only. We have maybe 6 hours of air and heat before the reserves run out. After that. She did not need to finish the sentence. The alien crew members began talking among themselves in their own languages. Huan could not understand the words, but the tone was clear. They were discussing death rituals and final preparations. Grix spoke in his broken but understandable human language. My people say good death better than slow death. If ship cannot be fixed, we should prepare spirits for next world. Tice's crystal body pulsed with dim light. Nexari meditate before passing. Seek harmony with cosmic forces. Accept what cannot be changed. The Clixon traders were more direct. Vix clicked their mandibles together in agitation. Homeworld must know of our fate. Family needs to understand we died with honor, not from carelessness. Huan felt the weight of command pressing down on him. 12 lives depended on his decisions, and he was running out of options. The ship's communication array was as dead as everything else, so they could not even send a distress signal. Even if they could, they were traveling through empty space between star systems. No other ships would be passing this way for months or years. We are not giving up yet, Huan said firmly. There has to be something we can do. Tay, is there any way to get partial power back? Even enough to send a distress signal? The engineer looked doubtful. Maybe, but it would require bypassing so many safety systems. The risk of explosion would be very high. One mistake, and we all die instantly instead of slowly. In the cargo bay, unnoticed by most of the crew, a figure sat quietly among the supply containers. Jin was a maintenance worker hired 3 months ago when they left the last space station. He was human, but older than the other crew members, with scars on his hands and a weathered face that spoke of hard experience. Jin had been listening to the discussion through the ship's internal communication system. While the others talked about death and impossible repairs, he was looking at the situation with different eyes. He had seen worse problems than this, in places where giving up meant not just his own death, but the death of everyone depending on him. Slowly, Jin stood up and began gathering tools from his maintenance kit. His movements were calm and purposeful, like someone who had faced impossible odds before and found a way through them. The ship was dead, and the crew was panicking. But Jin was just getting started. Jin walked slowly down the dark corridor toward the bridge, his maintenance bag over his shoulder and a heavy toolbox in his hand. The emergency lights cast long shadows on the walls, making the familiar ship seem like a strange and dangerous place. The crew was still gathered near the bridge, their voices growing more desperate as time passed. Captain Huan was trying to organize repair teams, but everyone knew the situation was hopeless. The ship's main computer would not allow them to restart the reactor, and none of them had the knowledge to override the safety systems. Captain, Jin said quietly as he approached the group. Huan turned around, surprised to see the maintenance worker. During the 3 months of their journey, Jin had kept to himself, doing his job without complaint but rarely joining in conversations with the rest of the crew. Jin, you should be at your emergency station, Huan said. We are trying to coordinate repairs. I know, Jin replied calmly. That is why I am here. I can fix the ship. The corridor fell silent. Everyone stared at the scarred human with the simple maintenance uniform and the quiet voice. Then several crew members began talking at once. What did he say? Grix asked, his reptilian head tilting in confusion. The maintenance worker thinks he can repair the reactor, Myra translated, her voice showing disbelief. Tay stepped forward, anger flashing in his eyes. This is not time for jokes. We are all going to die, and you want to pretend you can save us? I am the ship's engineer. I have studied reactor systems for 10 years. If I cannot fix it, then it cannot be fixed. Jin looked at the younger man without emotion. You studied reactor systems in school. You learned what the books told you. But books do not teach you how to keep machines running when everything goes wrong. This is foolish, Geises said, the crystal being's voice ringing like distant bells. Humans are known for their optimism, but this situation requires acceptance of reality. The ship's computer systems will not allow reactor restart. The safety protocols cannot be bypassed without proper authorization codes. The computer is wrong, Jin said simply. Computers always choose the safe answer, but safe is not always possible. Vix clicked their mandibles together in the Klickson gesture of irritation. Human arrogance. You think you know better than advanced technology designed by the best minds in the galaxy? Jin set down his toolbox and opened it. Inside were tools that looked different from the standard equipment the ship carried. Some were clearly handmade, welded together from scrap metal and spare parts. Others were military-grade instruments that seemed far too advanced for a simple maintenance worker. The reactor did not fail because of damage, Jin said, pulling out a small diagnostic device. It failed because of a cascade error in the quantum containment matrix. The automated systems tried to compensate for a minor fluctuation by cycling power through backup circuits. But the backup circuits were already running at maximum capacity from normal operations. Tay frowned. How do you know that? You were not in engineering when the failure happened. Because I felt it, Jin replied. The deck plates vibrated in a specific pattern before the power went out. The sound the reactor made when it shut down. The way the lights flickered before they died. I have seen this kind of failure before. Captain. Juan studied Jin's face carefully. The maintenance worker's eyes were steady and confident, very different from the quiet, almost invisible person he had been during the voyage. Where have you seen this before? Juan asked. Jin was quiet for a moment. Military transports during the Kepler station siege. We lost main power 6 times in 4 months. Enemy weapons, system overloads, battle damage. Every time the computer said the ships could not be repaired. Every time we found a way. Dr. Bin stepped closer, her medical training helping her. Read Jin's body language. You are not just a maintenance worker, are you? I am exactly what I said I was when you hired me, Jin answered. I maintain equipment. I keep machines running. The fact that I learned how to do it in a war zone does not change what I do. Myra looked at the tools in Jin's kit. Those are not standard maintenance tools. Standard tools work fine when everything goes according to plan, Jin said. When nothing goes according to plan, you need different tools. He pulled out what looked like a simple metal rod, but when he touched a control on the side, it extended into a complex multi-tool with sensors and cutting edges. This can read quantum field fluctuations and cut through damaged conduits at the same time. Built it myself from parts salvaged from 3 different destroyed ships. Grix stepped forward, his warrior instincts recognizing something familiar in Jin's manner. You have seen much battle, human. Enough, Jin replied without elaborating. Tay shook his head in frustration. Even if you have experience with damaged reactors, the safety systems will not allow a restart. The computer has locked down everything. We cannot access the manual controls. Jin smiled slightly, the first time any of them had seen him show any emotion. Computers can be convinced to change their minds. The safety systems are designed to prevent accidents during normal operations. But these are not normal operations. We are already dead unless someone takes action. What do you need? Captain Juan asked. The situation was desperate enough that he was willing to listen to any solution, no matter how unlikely. Access to the engineering section, the power distribution center, and the cargo bay, Jin said. Also, I need everyone to stop telling me why it cannot be done and start helping me do it. Tice's crystal body pulsed with uncertain light. The risk of explosion is enormous. If you make a mistake while bypassing the safety systems, the reactor could overload completely. We would die instantly. If I do nothing, we die slowly, Jin replied. I prefer taking action over waiting for death. Dr. Bin studied Jin's scarred hands and weathered face. She had seen many soldiers during her medical training, and she recognized the signs of someone who had faced death many times and found ways to survive. I believe him, she said quietly. He knows something we do not. Vix scuttled closer on their insect legs. What exactly do you plan to do, human? Jin shouldered his tool bag and picked up his kit. I am going to tear apart half the ship, rebuild the other half, and convince a very stubborn computer that staying alive is more important than following safety rules. He looked around at the assembled crew. The question is whether you are Going to help me save all of us, or stand here discussing why it is impossible until we run out of air? Captain Juan made his decision. Myra, give Jin emergency access to all restricted areas. Tay, you will assist him whether you believe in his plan or not. Everyone else, do exactly what Jin tells you to do. Jin nodded once and started walking toward the engineering section. Then let us get to work. We have 5 hours of life support left, and I need at least 4 hours to rebuild this ship. Behind him, the crew began to follow, still uncertain but no longer hopeless. The quiet maintenance worker had become their only chance of survival. Jin moved through the ship like a man with a purpose. His first stop was the cargo bay, where containers of trade goods sat in neat rows. The alien crew members followed behind him, watching in confusion as he began examining cargo that had nothing to do with ship repairs. What are you looking for? Myra asked as Jin pried open a container marked with clicks and trade symbols. Power storage? Jin replied, pulling out what looked like simple metal cylinders. These are portable energy cells for mining equipment. Not designed for ship use, but they will work. Vix scuttled forward on their insect legs, mandibles clicking in agitation. Those are expensive trade goods, worth more than your yearly salary. You cannot just destroy them. Jin looked at the Clixon trader calmly. How much are they worth if we are all dead? He continued pulling items from various containers. Industrial cables meant for construction work, heating elements from cooking. Equipment, even decorative metal panels that were being shipped to an art colony. To the watching crew, it looked like random destruction. But Jin saw each item as a component in a larger machine. Tay, I need you to help me carry these to the power distribution center, Jin said, loading the young engineer's arms with salvaged parts. I still do not understand what you are planning, Tay said as they walked through the dark corridors. These items were not designed to work together. The power requirements are completely different. Engineering school teaches you to use the right parts for each job, Jin replied, opening another access panel with tools that seemed to cut through metal like paper. Military engineering teaches you to make any parts work for any job. In the power distribution center, Jin began what looked like organized chaos. He tore apart wall panels to access the main power conduits, his modified tools slicing through protective casings that would normally require hours to remove safely. You are destroying the ship's electrical system, Lysis observed, the crystal being's inner light flickering with concern. I am rebuilding it, Jin corrected, splicing industrial cables into the main power grid. The original system was designed for normal operations. We need something that can handle extreme conditions. Grix watched as Jin welded connections with a small but incredibly hot torch. This reminds me of battlefield repairs. Quick, functional, ugly, but it works. Exactly, Jin said without looking up from his work. Pretty engineering is for peacetime. Survival engineering is for when pretty engineering fails. Dr. Bin arrived with medical supplies that Jin had requested. She was confused when he asked for surgical clamps and heating pads, but she trusted his judgment. The clamps will hold connections steady while I work, Jin explained, showing her how to position them. The heating pads will keep critical components warm if the environmental systems fail completely. As Jin worked, he began sharing fragments of his past. The crew listened while helping him position equipment and hold components in place. During the siege of Kepler Station, we had 17 ships keeping the supply line open, Jin said, carefully adjusting the makeshift power grid. Enemy attacks damage something every day. Weapons fire, electromagnetic pulses, debris impacts. The ships were falling apart faster than the repair crews could fix them. How did you keep them running? Yoon asked. She was fascinated by Jin's unconventional approach to problem solving. We stopped trying to fix them properly, Jin replied. Instead, we learned to make them work badly but consistently. A ship that runs at 60% efficiency is better than a ship that does not run at all. He demonstrated by connecting the mining equipment power cells to the ship's main grid. The connections looked crude and dangerous, held together with industrial clamps and wrapped in emergency sealant. This should not work, Tay said, staring at the jury-rigged power system. It should not work perfectly, Jin agreed. But it will work well enough. In another part of the ship, Jin began dismantling non-essential systems. The decorative lighting in the passenger areas, the entertainment systems, even the automatic food preparation equipment. Everything that used power but was not critical for survival. We are stealing power from everywhere else to feed the reactor restart sequence, he explained to Captain Huan. The ship will be uncomfortable and inconvenient, but it will be alive. The most complex part of Jin's plan involved the ship's computer system. The safety protocols that prevented reactor restart were built deep into the main programming. Jin could not simply delete them or override them with commands. Instead, he began creating false sensor readings. The computer thinks the reactor is too damaged to restart safely, Jin said, connecting modified diagnostic equipment to the main sensor array. So we will convince it that the damage has been repaired. You are lying to the computer, Myra sighed, amazed by the audacity of the plan. I am giving it the information it needs to make the right decision, Jin corrected. Sometimes machines need help understanding what is really important. The work took 3 hours of constant effort. Jin moved from system to system, rebuilding, rewiring, and improvising solutions that no engineering manual would ever recommend. The crew helped by following his precise instructions, even when those instructions seemed to make no sense. Grix used his considerable strength to bend metal supports into new shapes. Thizes used their crystal abilities to sense energy flows and identify problems before they became dangerous. The Clixon traders contributed their knowledge of the trade goods being used as components. Why do you know how to do all this? Dr. Bin asked during a brief rest period. This is not normal maintenance work. Jin was quiet for a moment, his hands never stopping their work on a particularly complex connection. When you are responsible for keeping people alive in impossible situations, you learn to see possibilities that others miss. You stop thinking about what things are supposed to do and start thinking about what they can do. How many times did you have to rebuild ships during the war? Tay asked. Every day for 2 years, Jin replied simply. Sometimes twice a day. You get very good at it when failure means everyone dies. As the 4th hour approached, Jin made his final connections. The ship's power grid now looked like a patchwork of different technologies held together by determination and improvisation. It was ugly, dangerous, and completely outside normal safety standards. But when Jin activated his modified diagnostic systems, the ship's computer began to receive new information. Sensor readings that showed the reactor damage was within acceptable limits. Power flow indicators that suggested the containment matrix was stable. It is working, Tay said in amazement, watching the computer slowly change its assessment of the situation. Jin nodded, exhaustion finally showing on his weathered face. Now comes the hard part. We have to actually restart the reactor using this mess I just built. He looked around at the crew that had worked beside him for the past 4 hours. Everyone ready to find out if human engineering is as good as I think it is? The reactor chamber felt like a tomb. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the massive machinery that had once powered their journey through space. Now it sat cold and silent, surrounded by Jin's improvised repairs like bandages on a wounded giant. Life support is down to 1 hour, Dr. Bin reported, checking her medical scanner. The air is getting thin and the temperature is dropping fast. Jin stood before the main reactor control panel, his hands steady despite the enormous pressure. Around him, the crew waited in tense silence. Everything depended on the next few minutes. The restart sequence requires someone to manually hold the primary power coupling while I route energy through the modified grid, Jin explained. The person doing this will be exposed to dangerous levels of radiation. Not immediately fatal, but definitely harmful. The crew looked at each other with worried expressions. No one wanted to volunteer for a job that would certainly damage their health, possibly permanently. I will do it, Myra said without hesitation. I am second in command. It is my responsibility. No, Grix said, stepping forward. I am strongest. Vorthok warrior can withstand more radiation than human. My crystal structure might resist the energy better, Vices offered. Though uncertainty flickered in the being's inner light, Jin shook his head. Myra is right. She knows the ship systems better than anyone except me. If something goes wrong, she can make adjustments while I work on the main controls. Myra nodded grimly and moved to the radiation exposure position. Tell me exactly what to do. Jin handed her a pair of his modified tools. When I give the signal, connect these cables to the power coupling. Hold them steady no matter what happens. The energy flow will try to throw you back, but you must not let go. What if the radiation is too much? Dr. Ben asked, her medical training making her worry about the risks. Then you treat radiation poisoning after we restart the ship, Jin replied bluntly. Dead from radiation is still better than dead from no air. Captain Huan positioned himself at the backup control station. What do you need me to do? Monitor the power flow readings, Jin said. When I start the sequence, the energy levels will jump around wildly. Call out any reading that goes above 80% of maximum. Tay stood ready at the manual override. Switches. Despite his earlier doubts about Jin's abilities, he now trusted the veteran completely. The computer is showing green lights for restart authorization. Your false sensor readings worked. Jin took a deep breath and placed his hands on the primary control interface. Everyone understand their jobs? Nods and confirmations came from around the chamber. Even the alien crew members who had initially dismissed Jin now watched him with respect and hope. Beginning reactor startup sequence in 3, 2, 1. Jin's fingers moved across the controls with practiced precision. The first stage involved bringing the containment field generators online using power from his improvised energy storage system. The machinery groaned and sparked as electricity flowed through connections that were never designed to carry such loads. Power coupling is heating up, Myra reported, her voice tight with strain as she held the heavy cables in position. Containment. Field at 30% and rising. Tay called out, the reactor chamber filled with a low humming sound as the quantum containment matrix slowly came to life. Jin's modified sensors fed false but encouraging data to the main computer, convincing it that the startup process was proceeding normally. Primary systems showing green, Captain Huan reported. But the power fluctuations are enormous. Jin nodded, sweat beading on his forehead as he balanced dozens of variables simultaneously. That is normal for this kind of improvised restart. The key is keeping everything unstable in a controlled way. The second stage required activating the fuel injection system. But Jin's modifications had changed how power flowed through the ship, and the fuel pumps were not receiving steady energy. Fuel pressure is dropping, Tay said with alarm. Compensating, Jin replied, rerouting power through 3 different backup systems at once. His hands moved like a pianist playing a complex piece of music, each adjustment perfectly timed to prevent cascade failures. Radiation levels are getting high, Dr. Ben warned, pointing her scanner at Myra's position. I can handle it, Myra said through gritted teeth. The power coupling was now glowing with heat, and she could feel the dangerous energy flowing through the cables she held. Jin reached the third and most critical stage. The reactor core itself had to be reactivated, and this required a precise sequence of commands executed at exactly the right moment. Too early, and the containment field would collapse. Too late, and the fuel mixture would become unstable. Containment. Field at 70%, Tay reported. Power flow is approaching maximum safe levels, Captain Huan added. Jin watched the readings carefully, waiting for the exact moment when all systems would be ready. In his mind, he counted down the seconds, based on experience gained from dozens of similar repairs under combat conditions. Now, he said quietly, and pressed the final activation control. The reactor core ignited with a sound like controlled thunder. Every light in the chamber flashed brilliant white, then settled into a steady glow. The containment field stabilized. The fuel pumps found their rhythm, and power began flowing through Jin's improvised grid. For a moment, everything seemed perfect. Then alarms began screaming throughout the ship. Power overload in sections 4 through 7, Captain Huan shouted over the noise. Containment field fluctuating wildly. Tay added, his voice rising with panic. Jin's expression remained calm even as sparks flew from overloaded circuits around him. This is expected. The system needs time to balance itself. But the ship groaned and shuddered as his modifications struggled to handle the enormous energy output. Several of his jury-rigged connections began smoking, and the smell of burning insulation filled the air. "The whole ship is going to tear itself apart," Grix observed, his warrior instincts recognizing the signs of imminent structural failure. "Not if I can help it," Jin replied, his hands flying over manual controls as he made real-time adjustments to power distribution throughout the ship. The lights flickered, the artificial gravity wavered, and for a terrifying moment it seemed like Jin's plan had failed completely. Then gradually the chaos began to settle into a new kind of order. The ship bucked and twisted like a living thing in pain. Jin's improvised power grid was working, but barely. Energy flowed through connections that sparked and smoked, held together by determination and military-grade improvisation. Section 12 is overloading, Captain Huan called out, reading from displays that flickered between green and red. Whatever you did there is not holding. Jin was already moving, his toolkit in hand. Tay, take over the main controls. Keep the reactor output steady, no matter what the readings show. But I do not know how to manage your modifications, Tay protested. Then learn fast, Jin replied, running toward the damaged section. Watch the patterns, not the numbers. If something feels wrong, trust your instincts and adjust. In Section 12, one of Jin's power couplings had come loose under the enormous strain. Electricity arced through the air, and the smell of melting metal filled the corridor. Without hesitation, Jin grabbed the loose connection with his bare hands. "Jin, no!" Dr. Bin shouted. "The electrical current will kill you." "Not if I am fast enough," Jin grunted, his muscles straining as he fought to reconnect the cable while electricity flowed through his body. His military training had included exposure to dangerous situations that would paralyze most people with fear. Grix appeared beside him, using his reptilian strength to hold the heavy power conduit steady. Vorthic warriors do not fear pain. "Tell me what to do." Together, they wrestled the connection back into place. Jin's hands were burned and smoking, but the power flow stabilized. One crisis was solved, but 3 more appeared immediately. Back in the reactor chamber, the containment field began fluctuating in dangerous patterns. The alien crew members watched in growing alarm as the readings jumped between safe and catastrophic levels. "This cannot be normal," Vix clicked, their insect mandibles chattering with nervousness. "No properly designed system should operate this way." "It is not properly designed," Tay admitted, his hands shaking as he tried to follow Jin's example of intuitive control. "It is designed to work when proper design fails." Vises moved closer to the main control panel, their crystal structure glowing with inner light. "I can sense the energy patterns through my crystalline matrix. The power flows are chaotic, but there is an underlying harmony." "What do you mean?" Myra asked. She had been treated for radiation exposure by Dr. Bin, but insisted on staying to help with the repairs. "Human engineering is like music," Vises explained, their bell-like voice filled with wonder. "Each component plays a different note, often discordant alone, but together they create a symphony that somehow works." Jin returned to the reactor chamber, his burned hands wrapped in medical bandages but still functional. He immediately began making adjustments to compensate for new problems that appeared faster than they could be solved. "How do you keep track of all these variables?" Yoon asked, amazed by Jin's ability to manage dozens of systems simultaneously. "You do not keep track," Jin replied, rerouting power around a failing circuit. "You feel the ship like it is part of your body. When something hurts, you fix it. When something feels wrong, you adjust it." "That makes no sense from an engineering perspective," Tay said, but he was beginning to understand. "You are treating the ship like a living organism instead of a machine. Machines break down when they encounter situations they were not designed for," Jin explained, his hands never stopping their work. "Living things adapt and survive." A new alarm sounded as the artificial gravity system began failing. Throughout the ship, objects started floating as the gravity field weakened and strengthened randomly. Gravity generators are overloading, Captain Juan reported. Grabbing a handrail as his feet briefly left the deck, Jin cursed it under his breath and began another series of rapid adjustments. I need to reduce power to non-essential systems. Everyone hold on to something solid. He systematically shut down lighting in empty sections, reduced heating in cargo areas, and eliminated power to every system that was not directly related to keeping them alive. The ship became cold and dark in many areas, but the critical systems stabilized. Life support is back to normal levels, Dr. Bin announced with relief. We have breathable air and adequate heat in the main sections. Navigation systems are coming online, Yoon added. I can plot a course to the nearest space station. But Jin was not finished. His makeshift repairs required constant attention, and he began training other crew members to monitor different systems. Grix, you watch the power couplings in sections 1 through 6, he instructed. If any of them start sparking more than usual, tighten the connections with this tool. Thizes, use your energy sensing to monitor the containment field. If the patterns start becoming too chaotic, call me immediately. Vix, your people are good with complex machinery. Take responsibility for the fuel injection system. Keep the mixture ratios within these ranges. Each crew member accepted their new responsibilities with determination. They had seen Jin save all their lives through knowledge and skills they could barely comprehend. Now they wanted to prove worthy of his trust. Why are you teaching us to maintain your repairs? Myra asked. Would it not be easier to do everything yourself? Jin looked around at the diverse group of beings working together to keep their ship alive. Because this is not just my ship anymore, it is our ship. Everyone needs to understand how to keep it running. The next several hours were spent in careful monitoring and constant small adjustments. Jin's improvised systems required attention that no normal ship would need, but they worked. The Stellar Dawn limped through space toward salvation, held together by human ingenuity and crew cooperation. How long will these repairs last? Captain Juan asked during a brief rest period. Jin considered the question seriously. If we are careful and make regular adjustments, maybe long enough to reach port. If we push too hard or ignore warning signs, maybe a few more hours. And after we reach port? Then proper engineers with proper tools can build a proper power system, Jin replied. My repairs are for survival, not for long-term operation. Tae had been studying Jin's modifications with growing admiration. I want to learn how to think like this, how to see solutions that others miss. It is not something you can learn from books, Jin said. It comes from being in situations where there is no choice but to find a way or die trying. The war taught you this? Jin nodded slowly. War teaches you that perfect solutions are a luxury. Good enough solutions are what keep people alive. As the ship continued its journey toward safety, the crew worked together with new respect for human adaptability and each other's unique abilities. They had learned that survival sometimes required accepting dangerous compromises and trusting in improvised solutions. Most importantly, they had learned that giving up was never an option as long as someone was willing to roll up their sleeves and get to work. 3 days later, the battered silhouette of Proxima Station appeared on the forward viewing screen. The massive space station rotated slowly against the starfield, its docking bays and communication arrays offering the promise of safety and proper repairs. Proxima Station, this is cargo freighter Stellar Dawn requesting emergency docking, Captain Juan transmitted. We have suffered major system failures and require immediate assistance. Stellar Dawn, you are cleared for emergency. Bay 7, engineering teams are standing by. The crew gathered on the bridge to watch their approach to salvation. Jin's improvised repairs had held together for the entire journey, but everyone could see signs of strain throughout the ship. Lights flickered occasionally, the artificial gravity wavered in some sections, and strange noises came from the power distribution centers. I cannot believe we made it, Tae said, shaking his head in amazement. 3 days ago, I would have sworn this ship could never fly again. It should not have worked, the Ices agreed, their crystal structure pulsing with satisfied light. By all logical calculations, Jin's modifications should have failed within hours. Jin stood quietly at the back of the bridge, watching the docking procedure with tired eyes. His hands were still bandaged from electrical burns, and exhaustion showed clearly on his weathered face. For 3 days he had barely slept, constantly monitoring and adjusting his jury-rigged systems. As the Stellar Dawn settled into the docking bay, Jin began gathering his tools. His job was finished, and he was looking forward to returning to his simple maintenance duties. "Where are you going?" Myra asked. "To pack my things," Jin replied. "The ship will be in dock for major repairs. The cargo company will probably assign me to another vessel." "Wait," Captain Huan said. "Before you go anywhere, I think the station engineers should see what you accomplished." Within an hour, a team of Proxima Station's best engineers had boarded the Stellar Dawn to assess the damage. What they found left them speechless. Chief Engineer Cross, a veteran of 40 years in spaceship repair, walked through Jin's modifications with growing amazement. "This is impossible," he muttered, examining the power grid that should never have worked. "These connections violate every safety protocol in the engineering manual." "Yet they brought us home safely," Captain Juan pointed out. Cross pulled out advanced diagnostic equipment and began analyzing the improvised systems. The quantum containment matrix was completely destroyed. No computer in the galaxy would have authorized a restart. "How did you convince the main system to bypass the safety locks?" Jin showed him the modified sensors that had fed false but believable data to the ship's computer. "I gave it the information it needed to make the right decision." "You lied to a ship's computer," Cross said, his voice filled with professional horror and grudging admiration. "That should have resulted in a catastrophic explosion." "Should have, but did not," Jin replied simply, another engineer, examining the power distribution system, called out in disbelief. "He used cargo containers as capacitors and mining equipment as backup generators. The power flow calculations alone should have taken days to compute." "I did not compute anything," Jin said. "I felt what the ship needed and gave it what I could." Cross stared at Jin with new respect. "You are not just a maintenance worker, are you?" "I maintain equipment and keep machines running," Jin answered. "What I did before does not change what I do now." Word of Jin's achievement spread quickly through Proxima Station. Engineers, technicians, and ship captains came to see the impossible repairs that had saved 12 lives. Some took pictures and measurements, trying to understand how the improvised systems functioned, but more importantly, the crew of the Stellar Dawn had changed. Grix approached Jin with the formal bearing of a Vorthek warrior presenting honors to a respected equal. "Among my people we have a saying. The strength of a warrior is measured not by the weapons he carries, but by the battles he wins when he has no weapons at all." The reptilian warrior removed a small metal disc from his armor and handed it to Jin. "This is a Vorthek battle medallion. It is given only to those who have proven their courage in impossible circumstances." Jin accepted the honor with quiet dignity. "Thank you, Grix. You showed courage too when you helped with the repairs." The Ices floated closer, their crystal body glowing with warm light. "The Nexari have a concept called harmony through chaos. We believed it was only a theoretical possibility until we saw your work. You have shown us that order can emerge from disorder when guided by wisdom and determination." The crystal being extended one of their limbs, offering Jin a small crystalline fragment. "This is a piece of my own structure, freely given in recognition of your achievement. It will glow with inner light, reminding you that others have seen greatness in your actions." Vix and the other Clixon traders presented Jin with an ornate tool case, beautifully crafted and designed to hold his modified instruments. "Clixon artisans made this to honor your skill," Vix explained. "Your tools saved our lives. They deserve a container worthy of their importance." Dr. Bin gave Jin a complete medical kit, specially designed for treating injuries that might occur during dangerous repair work. "Someone who takes the risks you take should be prepared for the consequences," she said with a smile. Yoon presented him with star charts and navigation data for the entire sector. So you will always know where you are and how to get home. She explained. Tae approached last, carrying a datapad filled with technical information. I have been studying your modifications and trying to understand the principles behind them. Would you be willing to teach me? I want to learn how to think like an engineer instead of just like a student. Jin looked at the young man's eager face and nodded. Engineering is not about following rules. It is about understanding why the rules exist and knowing when to break them safely. Captain Huan stepped forward with the most important offer. Jin, I am recommending you for promotion to chief engineer. The ship needs someone who can handle the impossible situations that seem to find us. Jin was quiet for a long moment, considering the offer. Finally, he shook his head. Thank you, Captain, but I prefer my current job. Chief engineers have to worry about paperwork and regulations. Maintenance workers just have to keep things running. But surely you want recognition for your skills, Myra said. You could work for any shipping company in the galaxy after what you accomplished. Jin shouldered his tool bag, now housed in the beautiful case the Clixon had made for him. I already have recognition from the people who matter. My crewmates know what I can do, and that is enough. As the crew prepared to disperse to their various destinations while the ship underwent major repairs, each member approached Jin one last time. They had learned something important during their 3 days of crisis. Humans did not give up when faced with impossible odds. They rolled up their sleeves and found ways to make the impossible possible. A week later, Jin reported for duty aboard another cargo freighter, the Star Wanderer. The new crew saw only a quiet maintenance worker with scarred hands and a well-used toolkit. They had no idea they were traveling with someone who could work miracles when necessity demanded it. Jin preferred it that way. He settled into his quarters, organized his tools, and prepared for another routine cargo run. But his instruments were ready, his knowledge was sharp, and his sleeves could be rolled up again whenever the universe decided to test human determination. In the cargo bay of the Star Wanderer, surrounded by containers and machinery, Jin began his familiar routine of checking systems and maintaining equipment. To anyone watching, he looked like just another worker doing a simple job, but the veterans of the Stellar Dawn knew better. They had seen what happened when a human veteran decided that death was not acceptable and rolled up his sleeves to do something about it. And across the galaxy, word began to spread about human engineering, and the stubborn refusal to accept defeat that seemed to define their species. The story of the Stellar Dawn became legend, told in spacer bars and engineering schools throughout known space. It was the story of how 12 beings from different worlds learned to work together, and how one quiet human showed them all what was possible when someone refused to give up. Jin never heard most of these stories. He was too busy keeping ships running and solving problems that others thought were impossible. It was exactly the way he liked it.